everybody, and welcome to Kensington Online. My name is Patrick, and we're so glad that you decided to join us today. If it's your first time, I want to say a big welcome to you and let you know that we're going to be together today for a little bit over an hour. During that hour, you're going to hear some amazing music, a helpful message, and you're even going to have the opportunity to comment below and connect with the service host right here online. So we would love for you to do that. We're going to be sharing some of the main points from the message. You're going to get links to the songs and even some ways that you can reach out and connect with us if you'd like to do that. One of the ways that you can do that is actually going to thehubtc.com. That's thehubtc.com. If you can fill out that form, what will happen is one of our staff members will connect with you and answer any questions that you have about your experience today or even about our church. I also want to invite you to follow us on social media if you're not currently doing that. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and those are really the best ways to find out more about who we are and all that's going on around here, and even be able to see a behind-the-scenes glimpse at how it all happened. So we would love to connect with you on one of those social media networks. Well, I think we're about to get started. Again, we're so excited that you decided to join us today, and we'll see you right back here in just a few minutes.
Well, good morning, Kensington. Let's stand to our feet and sing together. Here we go. Sing it out.
When night has fallen, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. Say it out. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on. It won't let go. Feeling breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on. Won't let go. Feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. In every season, you keep repeating promises to me. Whoa, whoa, no, there's no stopping what you have started till it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. Come on, you won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. No, I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Echo in my When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Come on, let's declare it. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. you won't give up. Come on, let's get out. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, I can't let go. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. No, I feel it breaking out, breaking out. Hey! Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, I can't let go. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. No, I feel it breaking out, I can't let go. Echo in my soul. Echo in my
All right. Well, welcome to Kensington Church. My name is Betty Dickinson. I serve on the teaching team here. And we're so glad you're with us as we can start a new series called The Backwards Way. And if you are new or visiting with us, a special welcome to you. We hope this is a safe place for you to explore your faith. And if you are new, we have a special environment for you in mind in the lobby called The Hub. There's a big orange sign out in the lobby. And we would love for you to stop there and we can answer any questions that you may have about our church. But if visiting something in the lobby is not quite your speed, we also have an online environment called thehubtc.com. And you can log in there and we'll help answer any questions you have and get back with you as soon as we can. Now, where are my ladies in the room? Ladies? Woo! All right. So tomorrow night, we have a special event for you called the Women's Christmas Event. It's at 6 p.m. And there will be appetizers, a craft. We'll be singing some Christmas carols. And I'm particularly excited about this event because I get to bring a message that God has been marinating in me for over a year about what does it mean to welcome the God of the universe to dwell in our midst in the midst of a crazy and busy time of year where expectations are high and we can feel particularly stretched. And so if you're anything like me and feeling kind of stressed this time of year and wondering, like, is this all there is? Is there another way that I can welcome God to dwell among me in the midst of Christmas? We invite you to join us tomorrow at 6 p.m. because we have a special event for you. So, with that said, I would love for you to turn to the person next to you and ask them, what is your favorite Christmas carol? Welcome.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, and I just wanted to say thanks again for watching our service today online and being a part of this community. Now, we know that you might have some questions as you watch the service today and want to find out a little bit more information about who we are. And so we've created an environment for you to do just that. Simply go to startingpoint.today. That's startingpoint.today and fill out that short form, and one of our staff members will reach out to you very shortly and answer any questions that you have about our church and about who we are. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back at the end of the service today to give you a little bit more information, but we'll see you here in just a few minutes.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan. This is Jen, Carrie, and Nikki. We're going to sing a song called Who You Say I Am. You guys ready to sing?
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last he has ransomed me, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. The sun sets free, oh, he's free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house There's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I
Come on, let's sing this song with everything we have. Like we mean it. Come on.
I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Listen, I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Come on. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I
I love that song. The next song we're going to sing is called Tremble. And the reason that this song resonates with me so much is because many of you don't know this. I am a single parent of 2 girls. I have a tween and I have a teen. So my house is a blast. So yesterday, I decided to get my daughter some bunk beds, my youngest. And I put them together by myself, and you should have seen me underneath that top bunk stepping into the grids to get that top bunk set on the posts of the bottom bunk to make sure it lines up correctly. It was a struggle. So, being a single parent, I experience many, many emotions, and I think we all do as parents. There's so many. We experience love and joy, laughter, sorrow, desperation. And a lot of times, being a single mom, I have moments of desperation, a lot of them. Am I doing this right? How am I going to do this? How am I going to make this work for me and my girls? And when I sing this song, it tells me to breathe and have peace. So I want you to keep that on your heart. If there's ever a time that you felt that with your kids, or perhaps you don't have any kids, but you felt that with your own parents as a child, well, let's sing this together. Keep that close as we sing this song, okay? Here we go.
Peace, bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name, still, call the sea to still, the rage in me to still every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Call these lungs to sing. Call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. Your name, it's a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name, it's a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Sing it with us. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus.
Amen. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're just so thankful to be here, where we can be at a church like this and sing songs of hope and redemption. God, as we sing this next song called No Longer Slaves, God, that you would just realign some of the identity pieces. Maybe we walked in here with just some baggage from the holidays. Maybe we got in a fight with a boss or a coworker, or a spouse, a friend, a relative, whatever the thing is, Lord. We want to take some time right now to just offer those problems, offer those things up to you. Because at the end of the day, every struggle in the world is a relationship problem. It's a relationship with people, or it's a relationship problem with anything, God. We just want to offer our problems. We want to offer ourselves up to you right now as we sing and we surrender. In Jesus' name, amen.
You unravel me like a melody. You surround me with a song. of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone.
Sing, I'm no longer.
I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of God. Yes, I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. As I've been born again into your family, your blood flows through my veins.
Sorry, let's sing it loud.
'Cause I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of God. Yes, I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of God. Let's sing that again. Yes, I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of God. That I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of God.
This next bit, let's declare this as a family with one voice. If you got something to say to Jesus, let's make this our moment. Here we go.
Oh, I am surrounded by the arms of a Father. Yes, I am surrounded by songs of deliverance. Let's declare, 'cause we've been liberated from our bondage. 'Cause we're the sons and the daughters. So let us sing our freedom. I'm no longer a slave to fear, 'cause I am a child of God. You sing. Yes, I'm no longer a slave to fear, 'cause I am a child of God.
Let me pray for us. Father, we thank you. We thank you so much that that's true. God, we thank you that you love us. We thank you that you pursue our hearts. God, we thank you that in spite of our brokenness, in spite of the difficulties that we bring to our lives, God, that you meet us in it. And so, Father, I pray over these next few moments, if we're someone who's been a follower of you for a long time, God, I pray that you would meet us here in this place. If we're somebody who's curious about faith and has questions, God, I pray that you would meet us here as well. And Father, I pray over these next few minutes that we would be open to what you have to say to us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thanks so much for singing with us. You can go ahead and have a seat. I think she just snuck out. Ruby was playing keyboard, right? Is this like Ruby's second time? Ruby's a high school student. Can we get up for Ruby real quick? She's so good. So good. You'll hear a little bit more from her here in just a few minutes. Hey, we're so glad you're here. My name is Patrick, for those of you who don't know, and I'm the lead pastor here. And we're glad that you braved the slush. Is that what you call that? Is that what that mess is outside, the slush, and you made it in today? We're super excited that you're here. Today's going to be an incredible day. We're kicking off a brand new series called The Backwards Way, and we're going to be talking about something that's very counterintuitive, I think, for a lot of us. And I've been super excited about this for a while, and we'll be talking about that. Hey, I also want to let you know, if it's your first time, if you would, go ahead and reach in the seat in front of you. We've got a little card for you that we'd love for you to fill out if you're willing to do that. We would love to connect with you and let you know a little bit more information about our church, a little bit more about who we are and what's going on here. And simply just, you can put your name, email, and or phone number, whatever you want to put on there. And then at the bottom, you'll notice it has a little note for a teacher. Let me tell you a little bit about that. What we've been doing around here is that we're connecting with one of our local school partners, which you'll hear about a little bit more in just a few minutes. And when we do that, we used to give everybody a coffee mug that came for their first time. And that was always fun. But at the end of the day, we're like, you already have a coffee mug. Most of us already have a favorite coffee mug. And so we just said, hey, one with our logo on it isn't really going to make your life better. But we could actually take that money and invest it into our local schools. And so that's what we're doing. So we'd love for you to go ahead and fill it out. That note to a teacher, at the end of December, we're all going to kind of, bombard them with letters from our church. So we're super excited about that. So you can do that, and you can hold on to that for just a few minutes. Hey, also really quick, I want to invite my friend Erica Walsh up. You guys give it up for Erica as she comes up. Erica is going to talk to us for just a couple of minutes, and I'd love for you too. I think when you came in, you got one of these books. I'd love for you to pull out this book too. Erica, I'm super excited about. She's a good friend of our family, and with Erica, she is actually volunteering with one of our local school partnerships, and that's Kids Hope. And so, if you're unfamiliar with Kids Hope is really a group of mentors that go into Traverse Heights Elementary School, and they spend time over lunch, and with a student that they're with for really a couple of years. A lot of these mentors are, and so I wanted you to hear a little bit from Erica about what we're doing. And so tell us how you got involved in Kids Hope. What was that like?
Well, really, hearing you guys talk about it up on stage.
So I'm that persuasive. Is that what it? Yeah. Just kidding. That was a joke. It wasn't funny, but it was a joke. Yeah, it was good. All right.
You're very persuasive, yes. So persuasive that it took me about a year
that's right,
to decide to do it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
You got involved, and then so you heard about it, and how long have you been doing it now?
This is my second school year. Traverse Heights.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Now, I'm curious, what were your hesitations about getting involved? Because we talk about it a lot around here, and there's about 50 of you, I think, that are involved in it. Tell us about, what were some of your hesitations?
Well, the reason I think it took me a year to decide to do it is because, as soon as you guys stand up here and tell us to do things, the immediate thoughts in my head are, well, I'm too busy. I have this, I have that, and my this, my that. And so it took me about a year to finally go, you know what, I need to be really intentional and think about sentences that don't start with I or my.
Right.
And so then I just decided to jump in, and it's a fabulous program.
Yeah, so how has it impacted you? I know you're making a significant impact in the life of your student, but how has this impacted you?
It's interesting how, on a Monday, I'm a checklist person. I'm very type A. So on a Monday, I have this big checklist. And on the end of a Monday, I typically am done with that checklist. And I feel good about it. I feel accomplished by that. I've done my meetings. I've taken care of my kids. Everybody's ready for school tomorrow. And I feel accomplished, but I don't necessarily feel filled. And what this program does for me, it's every Tuesday for me, and I feel filled when I go there.
Yeah.
It is so cool to see you guys. This little school is fantastic. This principal and their staff, they wrap their arms around these kids, but you know what? They're not enough. They need us. They need foot soldiers of God to be in that building. And to walk in there and, first of all, be greeted by my kid with absolute delight. I mean, she sees me and her face lights up. And she hugs me, and I am like the best person she's ever seen. And it's every week, you guys. It's the best way to greet someone. It really is. And then you walk into the media center where we all meet with our kids, and you see like 15, 10 other mentors with kids in the library. And they're talking, they're playing games, and every kid is so happy and engaged, and every adult is too. And it's just, it is the work of God in that media center and in that building. So it just fills me right up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
so tell me about, so you have a young girl that you're working with. What grade is she
She's
in?
a fourth grader.
She's a fourth grader. Okay, so
Yeah.
what impact have you seen in her life? Like, how have you seen this take shape with her?
She's already a phenomenal kid. She really is. But just me, I don't know how to say this perfectly, but when I first approached her and told her I was going to be her mentor, she acted like she won the lotto. She was like, me? You guys chose me? Because every single kid in that school wants a mentor, and she was chosen. And rarely in her life is she the one that has something that other kids don't already have. So I get to be that thing for her that she has that not a lot of other kids have. And it is just so inspirational to her. I mean, she loves me. She is so sad when there's a week that, you know, we can't be there because of a break or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, she just gets filled up by it. She loves to talk to me about her life and her challenges, and then I can assist her in those things. And I mean, it's just a fabulous relationship. I love this kid.
That's awesome. So I would love to ask you this too, and some of you may know this, but Erica also works with CFS here in town as well. And so I would love for you to talk about the partnership that we have even with CFS and what we're doing this Christmas.
So I'm board president at Child and Family Services. And so Brianna Motley and I decided this year, with her as the director of the Kensington Kids Hope Traverse Heights program, we decided to partner up and make sure that the kids of Kids Hope could be a part of our Paper Angels program. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the Paper Angels program at Child and Family Services. Yeah, okay, some of you are. So basically it's a wish list program. So we, throughout the Christmas season, we collect lists, about 800 to 900 lists of families who are in economic need. And these are Christmas wish lists from children, babies all the way to 25-year-old adults. And so this year we decided that we're going to make sure these Kids Hope kids also get a Christmas. And actually I looked at the binders last week at Paper Angels, and almost every Kids Hope kid has been chosen by a donor, and their Christmas lists are being fulfilled.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. Well, the reason I wanted you to hear from Erica and a little bit about what we're doing is when you come to church on the weekend, it's easy to come in and kind of slide out. And we've been talking a lot about generosity during this time of year. And we talk a lot about what we're doing globally, which is significant. I mean, we're really reaching a little over 500,000 people all over the globe because of people just like you who give. But we're also making a significant impact here in the community because of volunteers just like Erica and because you give. And so when you give to our church, you're actually giving to things like Kids Hope. You're giving for us to be able to partner in those ways. And so what I wanted to do, honestly, today, I wanted you to hear a little bit about what was going on with Kids Hope, but I also just wanted to say thank you so much for giving and partnering with us in those ways. As you pull out your book, if you want to do this too, and I'd love for you to hang just for a second, when you look at this book, throughout this is going to give you just a quick glimpse of what happens when you give to our church, some of the things that you're a part of, both here in Traverse City, but really all over the world as well. And I think specifically, I think if you turn right here in the middle, you're going to see like this page where it shows kids and students here. So you're helping kids in the community who need significant help, like with the school partnerships that we do, but you're also helping kids right here at our church. Over on the K-Kids side, there's a ton of volunteers that help out over there in middle school and high school as well. Really for us, we want to be a church that partners with families, partners with you as a parent. And so all of those things happen, again, because you give and because you invest in the next generation. So I want to say thank you so much for partnering with us. And as you consider like what you're going to do for this year in giving kind of thing, we would love for you to partner with us because of the ways that really we're connecting here in the community, and also because of the lives that are being changed through our church on the other side of this building. So if you ever get the chance to go down there, there's a security team. So if you walk down there, you'll get tackled. So don't do that. But if you have a kid over there, we'd love for you to maybe check it out or even ask to see. You can get a quick glimpse of all that's going on in the K-Kids area and all that's happening at our church. So one more time, Erica, thank you so much. Let's give it up for Erica and all the Kids Hope volunteers. Thank you so much. I'm going to invite our ushers to move forward. We're going to receive our offering this morning. And again, thank you so much to all of you who give. And if you're new to our church and you're curious, like, how do I actually do that? Obviously, in most churches, there's a little basket thing that kind of pops through. You can certainly do that. But one of the best ways to give is really through online. So you can always go online to give at kensingtonchurch.org/gift. You can also through text messaging as well. All these prompts are kind of up here as well. You can do that through text messaging or on the Kensington app. That's probably the easiest way to give for those of you who are setting up like recurring giving and those kinds of things. The other thing I want to let you know about is today, again, we are kicking off the series, The Backwards Way. I'm super excited about that, and it's really kind of a launch into what we're going to be doing for Christmas this year. Now, if you look at the stage, it probably looks slightly different than it looks on a typical weekend, so if it's your first time, I'm telling you, it looks a little bit different. And part of that is because all behind this stage, we have a team of people today, about 15 people today, are coming and tearing the whole thing completely apart and redoing it for Christmas. I know I probably say this every year, and I don't want to be that guy, but this year for Christmas, I'm so excited about what we're going to be doing. It's going to be an incredible service for you and your family and everybody that you invite. And we got services coming up. It's going to be Sunday, December 23rd at 9 and 11. We'd love for you to join us at one of those services. Or on the 24th, we have a 4 p.m. service that will be identical to the Sunday services. And then that night, on the 24th at 11 p.m., we'll do a render-style service. And if you've never been to Render, I'd love for you to join us for that. It's 11 p.m. It's a little bit more scaled back, and it'd be a fun kind of environment for you. We're going to sing all the Christmas carols, that you love, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a great thing. The only thing we would ask you to do, if you're willing to, is we just want to be prepared for you and your family. So when you come, if you would, you can go online to kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas, and then just let us know you're coming. You can RSVP. We call them tickets, which is always kind of funny because you don't have to have a ticket to come, but it is kind of an RSVP for you to come and just let us know they're going to be here. It really is a time of the year where we have probably the most people coming through our building at once, so we just want to make sure that we're ready for you. So with all that said, we're going to jump into the talk. Go ahead and check out the screens for a quick video on what we're going to be talking about. Check this out. All right, so today we're kicking off a series called The Backwards Way, which I'm so excited about because hopefully over the next couple of weeks, we're going to flip your thinking on a couple of different things. And the reason I get so excited about this is because when you look at our culture, and specifically when you look in our Western culture, a lot of times you look at the Bible, or if you read through the Bible, sometimes it feels like we're completely disconnected from things that happened thousands and thousands of years ago. And I feel that all the time, specifically when I'm looking at my iPhone. I'm like, he just doesn't have the problems that I have. You know what I mean? Like hashtag first world problems, right? Like it just feels a little bit different for us. And I know that. Like I know that you look at things and you go, it's just a different lens, a different way to approach it. But today what we're going to do is we're going to look at an area of the Bible that I'll tell you, if I'm really honest with, if you grew up in church and you heard this story, you probably felt like it was probably a fairy tale at the time. Like it feels so big and so massive and, kind of one of those things that's like, how can that even be true? And then the older that you got, like if you came through high school, college, this is one of my favorite things because a lot of speakers don't ever speak on this because of the way that the narrative feels. Like it just feels like one of those things. It's like, how does that even work? And how does it even fit in to our culture? But the reason that I want to talk about it today is because I think it fits in so well, not just in the narrative, but in the heart and the posture that most of us carry on a day in and day out basis. basis. And when I say most of us, just so we're clear, I'm talking about me probably more than I'm talking about you, right? So when I think about myself, when I think about the things that I struggle with, when I think about my mind, when I think about the drive that's in me that oftentimes I don't know how to manage, when I think about all of those pieces, it all finds its way into this narrative, and specifically one particular person in it. So before we jump into the text, though, I want you to see this picture because I think it's going to elicit some thoughts for a lot of us. How many of you have ever been to New York City or Chicago? Those two in particular, right? Real quick, how many of you have never been to New York or Chicago? Anybody? Yeah, that's awesome. You've never had Chicago. Okay, we'll pray about that. Anyway, so I'm just kidding. As long as you've had Chick-fil-A. If you've had Chick-fil-A, you're fine, right? So I went for the first time to Chicago like 2 years ago, and we were walking in the city, and I thought it was like, I love like big buildings. I'm just fascinated by it. And when you see a skyscraper like this, if you've ever been to one of those cities, like on a cloudy day, you look up and it just feels like an infinite kind of thing, right? You look up and it just feels like massive. And in some ways, when you see the clouds touch it, you know, I love this. When I was a kid, I used to think like we were like touching heaven, you know? When you're like a little kid, you're like, it's just, we went all the way up to the clouds. I don't know. And so I was just fascinated by this idea. Now, if you've looked at skyscrapers, which, you know, a lot of you have in passing, skyscrapers are so interesting because of what they represent for us as humans. So when skyscrapers began to be built, it wasn't just like one building and we go, we did it, right? In fact, as one was being built, there was almost like this competition for another one to be built, and then a competition for another one to be built. And most of us have seen pictures of guys, you remember this, that are sitting like on a big wood, you know, kind of plank out, just like, and if you look down, you're like, how do you even do that? You think about all the people who lost their lives trying to build some of these buildings, because back then it wasn't super safe, and even then, I still don't know that I would do that without a parachute. Like, there's all this kinds of, like, it's just an interesting competition. And there became this thing inside of us that skyscrapers, in fact, in some ways are good. Like, you know, everybody loves them. They're beautiful. They're, you know, you're going down the river in Chicago, you're looking at all of them. We did a boat tour. Anybody ever done the boat tour in Chicago? You know what I'm talking about? And they're telling you about all the buildings. I was so fascinated by it. And the thing that I was fascinated by most was just the competitive nature of getting these things up off the ground, and that now we could build a bigger one, and then we could build a bigger one, and then bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and just kept happening. I think that's so fascinating. Now, that idea in us isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, doing things innovative and, you know, being good at things, making things better, that's honestly a great thing. But for many of us, if that's unchecked, it can lead us to a place of extreme brokenness, and we've all seen that as well. People who didn't figure out how to manage that temptation to build bigger and bigger and better things, and then all of a sudden it all kind of came crumbling down. So the narrative that we're going to look at today is called the Tower of Babel, and if you've ever looked at this, again, if you grew up with it, hopefully we'll show you a couple of insights today that maybe you didn't catch as a kid. And again, it's something that we don't talk about a ton. And the reason that we don't talk about it a ton is because when you actually look at what was going on, this was essentially like the first skyscraper. There were a group of people who decided, like, if we can continue to build and build and build and build, then maybe we might reach the heavens, and maybe we might become godlike. And there was a thing inside of them that was driving them that we're going to talk about for a few minutes today. That it wasn't that they wanted to just build it bigger and better. It wasn't they just had a drive to do things in an innovative way. It was that ultimately they wanted to be godlike. That ultimately what they, you know, kind of wanted more than anything else is to be so much like God that they didn't necessarily need God. And if you read through, you know, the early passages of Genesis, you read through like Genesis 1 through 5, all of this, you start looking at sin, how it entered into the world. In the narrative of Adam and Eve, most of the time we talk about, you know, the original sin entering into the world because they disobeyed. But the interesting thing in the way that they were tempted was so much deeper than that. That it wasn't just I disobeyed God and God got angry. Right? Watch what the serpent says, or the tempter in Genesis. It says it like this. It says, "You will certainly not die," the serpent said to the woman. "For God knows that when you eat from it," now don't miss this, "your eyes will be opened," and can we say this together? "And you will be God, knowing good and evil." The temptation wasn't just to eat an apple. The temptation was to become like God so you don't need God, which is really the context from the Tower of Babel, right? When you read this narrative, which is such a fascinating narrative to read, you begin to understand that it's not just about building a building, and it's not even just about isolating yourself. It's an interesting thing because it is a group of people who are collectively centered around the idea that they could become godlike. Now, the word Babel is interesting, especially when it comes to its word origins, and I geek out over this, and if you don't, give me like 30 seconds, we'll be done, I promise. This part of it, the native origins of this actually point to like the gate of God. So there are actually moments or areas of history where this word is used in a very specific way, where it talks about a gate of God, that it's almost like this exclusive kind of gate that keeps some people out and lets some people in. But then the way that the people who were the early Jewish people who would have been talking about this, the way that they talked about it was in terms of confusion, or that their minds would be jumbled or confused. And that's going to become apparent later in the story. But this idea is that there is this exclusivity or gate that keeps some people out and keeps some people in. And then there's this thing or this idea of how it would be essentially moving towards confusion or jumbledness. So here's the narrative. We're going to read through it together, and then we'll talk through as we go through. So Genesis chapter 11, here's what it says. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. Right? So the whole world at the time, they would have talked about in this, they would have had one kind of common language, one unifying way of communicating with one another. And as people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. And it goes on. And they said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." Now, when you read this part of the Bible, you just immediately gloss over it because nobody cares about bricks, right? And it goes on. They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. And this is where it gets interesting. I love this. Because the way that they would have built buildings, especially this group of people during the time, is they would have used stone, right? They would have used stone during this time, which is very uneven, right? Do you remember as a kid when you were trying to like build stuff and you stacked stones? It never went well or more than 6 inches off the ground, right? You just didn't do that. But when you grabbed bricks, all of a sudden they were all uniform and the same and all stackable in the same way. So this part of the narrative, the way that it kicks off, is not just about bricks, and it's not even just about a group of people. This is actually about invention, right? It's about innovation. It's about making something better, that we're going to build this thing, but we're going to build it in a different way than we ever have before. Now, you don't think of bricks like this, but what we're really talking about is technology. That we're talking about, we now have a way of doing this, a way of approaching this whole building thing that is going to be a game changer for us. That we can leverage the technology to build something bigger and better and faster and more consistent. But the deeper question around this, we already talked about, is why do they want to do that? But the question of building bigger and better things, and specifically in building walls and the way that we approach everything, is what's the intention around it? Writer goes on. They said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise," this is the deep inherent fear, "we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." And for us, being a collective body in a group who are unified, doing the exact same thing without the uniqueness, for us, if we figure out how to stay together, then and only then can we make a name for ourselves. Why? Because then we can be protected. Because then we can have it together. Then we can be people that we need to be. Then we can be all-powerful and godlike. Now, we're like 3 verses in. Think about the implications of this already for us. It's a group of people who are focused on self-protection right off the bat. It's a group of people who already say, hey, these are our fears. This is what's going on. This is how we protect ourselves. It's already a narrative about human power. That if I have power and if collectively we have power, if we can all gather it together, then and only then can we do something. And then, I love this, build a name for ourselves. It's about self-promotion. That collectively or even as individuals, we're going to promote ourselves to do something and to exclude others from it. Now, all of that would be interesting. In fact, we could stop there and be like, yeah, you shouldn't do that, and it turns out bad for the group of people who are focused on this. My favorite part of the narrative is actually not found in Genesis 11. It's one chapter back, because it tells us about the leader of this movement who is creating this exclusivity and this wall building. And I love his name. Can we say it together? Hashtag Green Day, right? Like, this is great, right? Like, I love this. I love this. His name was Nimrod. Now, I don't know how you use that. Actually, I don't know that I've ever used that as a cut down before. I plan on it after today. I think that'll be great. But I just think it's such an interesting thing. Some of you use it to talk about people if they're dumb or that sort of thing. I think that's how it's used. Somebody was telling me earlier. I didn't even know it, but it's great. It's a great word to use. Here's what it says in chapter 10, verses 8. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who became a mighty warrior, right? The Hebrew here is like he was strong, powerful in battle on the earth. So why? And again, this is like oversimplification, but he was a mighty hunter before the Lord, and that is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Thank you so much. And then it says this, and this is the part that's interesting. The first centers of his kingdom. Now don't miss this. The first centers of Nimrod's kingdom, this powerful collective group of people, the first centers of it were in Babylon. Now, this is the area that the whole Babel incident would take place. That he was building a kingdom, that he was building an empire, that because of his mighty strength and his leadership and whatever that is, people were following him, and they had this like self-protection thing, they had this self-promotion thing, they had everything kind of focused inwardly, and they were going to, now don't miss this, build a tower, build a wall, build a skyscraper, build a city that kept others out and kept them in. My friend Nimrod was leading the charge on this. Now, this is where it gets so funny. And again, if you don't read the Bible often, this is why I think the Bible is so fascinating, in part. Because you know what Nimrod's name actually means in Hebrew? It's the Hebrew word to rebel. Isn't that funny? Like the writer who's putting this together, talking about Nimrod, maybe it's his massive coincidence. I think that would be even better, right? But Nimrod was one who was rebelling and causing people to be exclusive and leveraging all the technology to do it. And it's through that lens that we read these words. They said, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens. Why? Because we can, so that we may make a name for ourselves, right, Nimrod? And he didn't take offense to it. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the whole earth. Now, all that's fascinating, and all that's like, for some of us, we're like, all of that sounds like a good thing. Like, what's the problem with that? All that sounds good unless you were a person who wasn't on the inside of that. Like, can you imagine, like, going, and for the first time you see new technology being used to build something that in some ways kept you out? Can you imagine standing at whatever those gates were and going, they're building it faster than anything I've ever seen before. They're building it quicker, and they're doing it better, and the technology is being used to keep me on the outside of this thing. Dave Gibbons, he wrote a book called Small Cloud Rising, which I would encourage all of you to read. Actually, a lot of these insights come from this book. It's so good. And it's a quick read. If you don't like to read, it's so fast and so great. But he has this quote in the book that I think is so powerful. He says, the building of Babel exhibits the motivation of the human heart, don't miss this, to promote oneself against the welfare of others. In our desire to make a name for ourselves, we are more than content, don't miss this, to rise on the backs of other people. Now, you don't do that. Hopefully, I don't do that. Or we don't think about the ways that we might do that. The story of the Tower of Babel isn't about a group of people who just built a big thing and try to keep people out. It's not a story of a group of people who just built a big thing and, this is our God-loving, God-fearing thing, right? It's not just that. The implications of it are so much deeper. Because you'll discover God wasn't just concerned about the people who were in. He was also concerned about the people who were on the outside of it. N.T. Wright, one of my favorite writers, theologians, he says it this way. I love this. He says, while humanity had a mission to reflect God, it had been distracted by its own reflection and was both fascinated and fearful of what it saw. Think about this for a second. Fascinated and fearful of our own power. You ever thought about that? That within you lies this innovation and power and ability to create and do things. Within you lies the ability to be an amazing husband, father, parent, worker. In you lies this amazing ability to do extraordinary things. But within that same power, do you ever find yourself like fascinated by it and at the same time fearful of it? Dave Gibbons says this, and I think it's so powerful. He says, it's like the walls that we create for ourselves in time just become mirrors that reflect us. And how do we feel when all of those walls become mirrors that we now see ourselves in over and over and over again? It's fascinating and fearful and shocking all at the same time. And the reason that it is because if you were really honest about you and if I was really honest about me, I like to harness that like fire. Like I like to see fire and I like to poke at fire. Let's try another. I like to see bumblebees and I like to poke at bumblebees until something happens and it becomes more powerful than me. Anybody ever? Nope, this is just me. So recently, I guess when winter comes, there's like a queen bee that sometimes will sneak in your house. You ever seen this? And I didn't know this, but if you kill the queen bee, then it lets off this odor that then calls the other bees. So we were doing this for hours, and I'm scared to death of bees. Like not even like a little bit. Like I'm like turned into a 2-year-old little man-child. Like it's frightening. And so of course I did what every great husband should do. I called my wife to kill it. And so she comes down with Windex and a baseball bat and a shotgun. I'm kidding. But like we had just about everything in the house. And so get this, she kills the bee and is laying in a bottle of Windex. So I come over to try to stomp on it. You ready? And I stomp and slip, and then I did a split that I didn't know I could do. Which was cool. And I thought to myself, this tiny little bee is both small and powerful, and I'm fascinated by it, but at the same time, I'm like, there's something in me that if it stings me, you know? I'm not exactly sure that fits perfectly, but I think you see where I'm going, right? That there's this fascination and fear of what we're able to create and do, what we're able to become and do. And there's a fascination by it because as we look in those own mirrors, we not only see ourselves, but we see other people who have come before us and not done it well. That you've seen people who exhibited pride that led to a rebellion that in some way led to an oppression. And we see this on big scales, especially when it comes to politics and other countries and all this kind of stuff. But we also see this like in the workplace. And we see this in our families. And we see this in the way that we relate to each other on a day in and day out basis. That if there is pride, that there's likely going to be some sort of rebellion against that which is good, which is ultimately going to lead to some sort of oppression against someone else. And this is not the way of God. So Nimrod leads these people to build this big, massive, gigantic, awe-inspiring tower to all of those who were building it, but those who are on the outside going, I feel afraid. So what happens next is their greatest fear comes true, but not at their own hands. It says this, Genesis 11:5, it says, but the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. It says, come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. That let's forcefully, don't miss this, create an odd set of uniqueness amongst them that causes them not to be able to communicate and ultimately build the exclusive tower that they're trying to build. So what did he do? So the Lord scattered them from over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. Now here's why I love this. I think it's so powerful. Because in me and in you is this power to do extraordinary things. But in you and in me is the same temptation that happened all the way from Genesis 1, 2, and 3. That in us is this yearning at times to be godlike and to be the one that it all centers on. In me is this desire to have like self-protection and make sure that we're safe and that we're good and that everything's taken care of and and to promote. Like, I want people to see. I want people to know. I want people to be able to see what we can do and accomplish, all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, don't miss this. How often does that pursuit lead us to only building relationships with people that are like us, and yet subtly building these gates of Babel that cause others to be at a distance? And how often do we create these barriers between other people where we were never designed to do that? Their greatest fear is being scattered, and God scatters them all for the betterment of all humanity. That God causes them to embrace a uniqueness that they didn't even realize was present. And he just, to Nimrod, right? Like, tears down the wall and all of the things that they were confident in to say, no. The uniqueness and the beauty in that. And the breaking down of these walls that would become mirrors. So it would actually bring humanity forward. What if God's plan were a people who scattered and found unity within their own uniqueness? This is what I love about Christianity, right? Is that you can go all over the world and it looks slightly different, and people look slightly different. People act slightly different. People believe all sorts of different things, right? But there's this unity amongst the uniqueness with people who have found Jesus. Look at our world today. Right now, we're able to interact with people in ways that we've never been able to interact with people before because of the internet and the way that we're globally connected, all these kinds of things. And you come face to face with the uniqueness of so many different people and cultures that see the world differently than you. But how often do we try to just, and it's subtle. In Babel, the people's greatest fear is the very thing that God desires, to be scattered over the face of the earth. To never be a group of people who huddle together just for the sake of finding likeness, but to go out amongst people who are different. Which means that when it comes to self-protection, that goes away and it becomes trust and obedience. It becomes trust and obedience in something that's more than you and bigger than you and different than the ways that you think of it. It's not in your own human power. You find people all the time that are forcefully trying to do it fully on their own, and they're just tired. But it comes back to, nobody likes to say this, but submission to authority that's higher than you and bigger than you, and values that feel different than what comes natural. And self-promotion, right, goes away in the face of genuine worship, which is such a weird word because most of the time we just tag it to singing songs. It's not that. It can't be that. It's this kind of awe-inspiring, I'm going to be fully engaged with something beyond me and let my heart gravitate in that direction. And living my life for that. And the one that I think it naturally kind of forcefully breaks down is pride. The areas of my life that I think that it's about me or that I'm the center of my own universe, that I'm the one, that it breaks down in selfless love. That the way that God designed us to live with each other and in our world is not one where we build these sacred walls that feel like they pull us away from each other. It's one in which we lean into one another very deeply. Now, here's where I think this specifically applies to the church. If you read through the New Testament, something interesting happens in Acts, where they were gathered in one place. In fact, they were praying that the Spirit of God would be amongst them in such a powerful way that they would see an impact in the world. And then when the Spirit of God comes, such an amazing narrative, when the Spirit of God comes, they don't stay together in one place, closed up. They scatter. And they go. And they're in this miraculous way able to communicate to so many different types of unique people about the same truth. One of my biggest fears for us as a church, if I'm really honest, and this is fun, this is what I stay up at night thinking about, right? Is we can get so good at coming and doing church, right? And I love it. I love it. Sunday's my favorite day of the week. I run in here at 5:30 in the morning. That's not true. 6 in the morning, right? I run in here, I'm excited to be here. We're doing the stage design thing, and they're like having to kind of tell me to stop because I'm jumping in. I'm like, well, give me the light. I'll do it. They're like, no, for the love of God, don't touch that, right? I break stuff a lot. Anyway, like, I love it. But there are days where I walk in here during the week and I'll be praying for you. I sit in the seat. And my prayer is, God, don't ever let us think that it's about sitting in a seat on a Sunday. I mean, it's great when we gather and we create this place where you invite people and hopefully they come and their curiosity is kind of deeply piqued and they take steps toward Jesus. But when you're in a home around a table with a group of people and you're like deeply living life, that's where it's like, oh, that's what that is. When you're out somewhere and you talk to someone who you know is vastly different than you and you feel uncomfortable, that's where the Spirit of God is meeting you. It's in these really sacred spaces that aren't confined to these buildings. And I think to myself, oh, like there's all these walls. It's a weird shaped building, isn't it? Every once in a while I'm like, there's an extra wall somewhere. I don't know. Like I'm very symmetrical, as you can tell, so don't move the chairs, but I'm very symmetrical. Anyway, you're learning so much about me today. It's great. But I think like if these turn into mirrors and we're super pleased with just looking at ourselves, let's just give the money to somebody else. Let's do something else. It's not just about us. I hope what breaks your heart, like deeply breaks your heart, isn't that we walk in here and we just have a good service. I hope that what breaks your heart is that we go beyond these walls and become the church to other people. Feels like a really cliche thing to say, but there were a group of people that are never confined by the walls in this room. But there were a group of people who are defined by what happens outside of this room. Now, I want you just for a minute, right? Today, millions and millions of people all over the world, right, will come and they'll sit in a seat, right, and they'll listen to a guy with some form of a microphone probably talk, or lady with a microphone talk, and it'll be a great thing like this. I think it's great. But what would happen if the church or the people of God, all those millions of people were released to do something outside of the walls and made such a significant impact on people? Dave Gibbons said this. I'm going to misquote him. I wish I could say it perfectly. You should read the book. But he says, you can't mass love somebody, right? Like you can't love 1,000 people at one time. Like you can, but you can't really, you know? The selfless love is really happening one person, one relationship, one conversation at a time. What would happen if we took that approach and we said, what could the church be like if it wasn't confined to a building? So I want to invite the band up real quick. We're going to sing one last song. And here's what I want to do. And it's a song that a lot of you have heard. It's a fascinating song to me because it's by a worship leader named Lauren Daigle, who like had this like song, and then it became like a Christian song, and then then she's on Ellen. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. You know, she's on Fallon, she's doing all these kind of things. And the song has these very powerful, powerful lyrics in it. And can we skip to that last slide, Anna? She says this. She says, remind me once again who I am because I need to know. All right. And in the song, she says, taking all I have and now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God. You have every victory. And so for the next couple minutes, Carrie's going to lead us in this song. Ruby's going to play it. It's going to be great. Here's what I would love for you just for a minute to think about. Some of you, you're really, 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 really comfortable, and me too, like really comfortable with the way that you think about church, the way that you think about your life. It's all in these perfect kind of boxes. My question for you is, where in your life does that get messy, right? Where is it not like perfectly in a four-walled thing, but you've had, like, when's the last time you had a conversation that made you feel slightly uncomfortable with somebody that you didn't have answers to? When was the last time that you reached out to somebody and you said, hey, I don't want to just invite you to church, but I want to invest in your life. I'd love for you to come over to dinner. And you felt slightly uncomfortable with the idea that they might come over to dinner, right? When was the last time that you like stretched yourself and you had a conversation with somebody where it felt weird? When was the last time, if you were going to be really honest, you tore down, the racial walls that maybe you've never intentionally but subtly put up? You've torn down like walls when it comes to people who see the world differently, walls when it comes to politics, all these kinds of things. And you were with humans, as a human. doing what God has called you to do? When was the last time that you did those things? And if you're like me, honestly, like in the last month, I'm like, I don't have a great answer for that, you know? And my challenge to you, my challenge to me for these next few minutes is that sing this song is to be reminded of who you are and what God has put you here to do. Because the end goal for your life isn't just you. It's something that's so much bigger than you. Let me pray for us, and then we'll do this song together. Father, we thank you so much for this truth. And God, we thank you that you have called us into a purpose that's so much bigger than ourselves and such a bigger scale than most of us even like to think about it or imagine. And God, I pray that you would help us to lean into whatever that messiness is and that uncomfortableness is and actually begin to do what you called us to do in some of those ways. God, I pray that we would be more frightened by walls that we build and feel safe. God, I pray that you would call us beyond these walls and that we would follow you deeply and that you would remind us deeply in our identity who you called us to be and what you called us to do. For the person here who's like, I feel too busy. For the person here who feels afraid. For the person here who has every reason. And even as I was talking at the end, they had just an amazing ability to create whatever version of an excuse it is to not do that. God, I pray that you would just break down those things and that you remind us of who we are and what you called us to do, and you would help us to lean into it. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, 'cause I need to know. You say I'm loved when I can't feel a thing. And you say I am strong when I think I'm weak. And you say I am held when I keep falling short. And when I don't belong, you say I am yours. And I believe, yes, I believe what you say of me. Oh, I believe the only thing that matters now is everything you think of me. In you I find my worth, in you I find my identity. You say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I'm weak. You say I am held when I am falling short. When I don't belong, you say I am yours. And I believe, oh, I believe what you say of me. I believe. Taking all I have in and laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God, and you have every victory.
So here's my challenge to you this week, and this is a challenge for me too, right? I'd love for you this week to think about where are those areas that you've built up those subtle walls, and how do you need to tear them down? Like, where are the areas that you find yourself with self-promotion or pride? And if you don't know, ask your spouse. They'll let you know. Or a best friend, right? They'll let you know. Like, just let somebody in on this conversation with you. And then here's what I'm going to challenge everybody to do this week. This is what I would love if everybody in this room, everybody watching online, everybody does this together. I would love for us all to take one uncomfortable step outside of that wall this week, right? Can you imagine if we just released all hundreds of you, all the 1,000 people watching online, everybody just this week took one uncomfortable step towards somebody that was different than them or they had built a wall against? I really think we can see something extraordinary begin to happen. Next week, we're going to talk about a little bit even further, specifically around your pain. So if you're somebody who's like, you know what, I have baggage, which I think is everybody, we're going to talk specifically about that and how we can leverage that in some of those relationships too. So thanks so much for being here. If it's your first time, we'd love to connect with you in the hub. It's at a new place. It's going to be right in the center of the lobby. We'd love to connect with you out there. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you right back here next Sunday. See you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching online. We're so glad that you decided to watch today and to be a part of this online community. Next week, we're continuing our series called The Backwards Way. It's going to be an incredible week. We're going to talk specifically about your pain and how you can leverage that into an amazing thing for other people. So we're going to talk about that next week. I also want to invite you, if you're not currently doing so, to follow us online. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those are some of the best places you can find out more information about our church and even see behind-the-scenes things about all that's going on here. I think today we're actually going to be live streaming part of our set design for Christmas. It's going to be so much fun. We'd love for you to join us for that as well. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next Sunday. See you soon. Hey everybody, and welcome to Kensington Online. My name is Patrick, and we're so glad that you decided to join us today. If it's your first time, I want to say a big welcome to you and let you know that we're going to be together today for a little bit over an hour. During that hour, you're going to hear some amazing music, a helpful message, and you're even going to have the opportunity to comment below and connect with the service host right here online. So we would love for you to do that. We're going to be sharing some of the main points from the message. You're going to get links to the songs and even some ways that you can reach out and connect with us if you'd like to do that. One of the ways that you can do that is actually going to thehubtc.com. That's thehubtc.com. If you can fill out that form, what will happen is one of our staff members will connect with you and answer any questions that you have about your experience today or even about our church. I also want to invite you to follow us on social media if you're not currently doing that. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and those are really the best ways to find out more about who we are and all that's going on around here, and even be able to see a behind-the-scenes glimpse and how it all happened. So we would love to connect with you on one of those social media networks. Well, I think we're about to get started. Again, we're so excited that you decided to join us today, and we'll see you right back here in just a few minutes.
Well, good morning, everybody. Let's stand and sing together. Here we go. Let's get our hands up like this. Come on.
When night has fallen and fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, come on, you will be my strength. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me, yeah. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. No, you won't give up on me. Your love is so long, you won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on. Let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. In every season, you keep repeating promises to me. Whoa, whoa. Now there's no stopping what you have started until it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me, yeah. I've decided I'm not giving up. Come on, you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. Like an echo, come on. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Echo in my soul. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me, yeah. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. you won't give up on me, 'cause your love is holding on and it won't let go. Come on. I feel it breaking down like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. No, I feel it breaking down like an echo. Come on. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking down like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking down like an echo, echo in my soul. Echo in my
All right. Well, welcome to Kensington Church. My name is Betty Dickinson, and we are so glad that you are with us as we launch our new series called The Backwards Way. And you are in for a treat. Patrick's message was just really powerful. What it looks like in this time to welcome the God of light into darkness in our world. And I'm so excited. For those of you who are new or visiting with us, I just hope that you feel that this is a safe place for you to explore your faith. And particularly if you are new, we have an environment just for you in the lobby called The Hub. There's a big orange sign, and we hope that you stop out there to answer any questions that you may have about our church. But if visiting the lobby, a table in the lobby isn't quite your speed, we also have an online environment called thehubtc.com. You can log in there, and one of our staff people will get back with you as soon as we can. Now, where are the ladies in the room? Any ladies? All right. So I am super pumped for tomorrow. We have a special women's Christmas event at 6 p.m. There's going to be appetizers and a craft and time to gather together and Christmas carols. But I'm particularly excited about this event because God is inviting me to bring a message that he's been dwelling in me and marinating in me for the last year of what does it look like to invite God to dwell in our midst in the time in our culture, in our world, that is just full of stuff and busyness and craziness in Christmas season. So if you're anything like me and you're feeling particularly stretched and limited this year with all the activities and you're longing for like a different way to approach Christmas and wondering, is this all there is? God, what do you have for me in this season? This event is for you. And so I'm so pumped for what God will do among us tomorrow night. We invite you to join us. With that said, I want you to turn to the person next to you and ask, what is your favorite Christmas carol? All right, welcome.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, and I just wanted to say thanks again for watching our service today online and being a part of this community. Now we know that you might have some questions as you watch the service today and want to find out a little bit more information about who we are. And so we've created an environment for you to do just that. Simply go to startingpoint.today. That's startingpoint.today and fill out that short form, and one of our staff members will reach out to you very shortly and answer any questions that you have about our church and about who we are. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back at the end of the service today to give you a little bit more information, but we'll see you here in just a few minutes.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan. This is Jen. This is Carrie and Nikki. We're going to lead you guys in a song called Who You Say. Let's sing it out.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free. Oh, he's free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Through the rest he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Come on. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
It's one of my favorite songs. The next song that we're going to sing, it's called Tremble. And this song resonates with me personally because I actually am a single parent of 2 girls. I have a teen and a tween, so my house is exciting all the time. So yesterday, I put together a set of bunk beds for my youngest by myself. And it was quite the sight to see. I had to lift up the top bunk on my shoulders and step between the slats in the bottom bunk and try to line it up so I could get the 4-post pegs in exactly where they were supposed to be. It was crazy. So, as a single parent, and I'm sure many of you guys can relate, as parents, there's a lot of emotions that go on between parents and kids and everything that happens that surrounds all of that. You get emotions of joy filled with laughter, pain, sorrow, discouragement, desperation. As a single mom, I feel that a lot. I always want to know, am I doing this right? Am I doing everything that I can do? I only get one shot, so I've got to get it right. I do. And in these moments, this song really speaks to me because it tells you to breathe and have peace, which is what we really need in moments like that. So I want you to keep that on your heart as either a parent or a child of being yourself to your parents. And just keep that on your heart right here as we sing the song together. Let's do this.
Bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name, call till, call the sea to still, the rage in me to still every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Breathe, call these bones to live. All these longs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus.
Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus.
Your name, it's a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name, it's alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus,
Yeah, that was great. Hey, here's something I want to do. Sorry, you kind of see I kind of threw our band and everybody off for a second. I hope that's okay. Is that all right? First off, wow, that was amazing. I love that song. Don't you guys love that song? It's an amazing one. So good. Here's what I want to do just for a second. It's something we don't do a ton, but and you're the 11 o'clock crowd, so you're the cool crowd, so I feel like you could probably do this. I heard that song earlier today, and I kind of wanted to do it at 9, but I was thinking to myself, I was like, when you come here, you kind of come to a big church, right? You kind of come in, and you see a lot of people, and you meet people, and that sort of thing. And sometimes you can come in, and it can feel big, but it's hard to feel small, you know? And we have a family that's a part of our community who has a daughter named Macy. And Macy's been very sick for the last couple of days. She has a lung infection that has happened, and they kind of airlifted her down to Grand Rapids, and there's been a lot going on for the last couple of days. She had a procedure last night that went well, but she's not out of the woods yet. So here's what I'm going to do. I think we have a little like pad kind of thing, but I'm going to ask you to do something that's a little bit uncomfortable that, again, I don't think we've ever done since I've been here. But I would love to take a moment, and if we could just pray for this little girl. She's 3 years old, and 3 years old, I believe. Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 or 3 years? 2.5, yeah. Wow, she's Henry's age. It's crazy. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is going to be something that's a little bit odd, something we may have not done before. And if you're here and you've not been here before, I promise we'll do this every week. And if you're an introvert like me, you're about to feel real uncomfortable, but we'll tackle this together. But I'd love for you to do this. Now, I'd love for you to find maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people around you, if you could. And out of that, maybe just find somebody that's like comfortable actually praying out loud. Can we do that? And maybe find a couple people around you. Some of you are like, who's the person who looks like they like to pray? So go ahead and find that person real quick. So find a couple people around you. And then what I'd love for you to do is I'd love for us just to pray together, right? And we pray for Macy. Specifically, we're praying that the fluid would come off of her lungs and the infection would subside. And so what I want to do is I'd love for us to pray, but I'd love for you to do this. I want you to go find a couple of people around you. And again, if you don't know people, that's okay. I know it's going to feel uncomfortable. Find a couple people around you. And then we're just going to spend maybe 30, 45 seconds praying, and then I'll come back and do that. So go ahead and find a couple people around you. Find a person, designate somebody if you would for this person. This is the person who's going to pray. And then I'd love for us just to pray out loud. So there's about 10, 15 more seconds of awkwardness. But after we do that, I promise you'll be fine. Find that person, and then we're going to pray. And we're going to pray together. Keep praying. I'm going to pray for us, and you feel free to keep going. We'll wrap up in a second. Father, sometimes there are moments where we don't fully understand and or fully grasp things that feel outside of our control or things that feel difficult. God, we thank you so much for Macy. And God, you've told us that in moments of asking for healing, you've asked us to come to you in those moments. And so, Father, you got a group of people here who are praying for this young girl, and I would say collectively, we just believe that can make a difference in her heart and in her life, and that can make a difference in her family and peace. And so, Father, today we just pray for peace for Caleb. We pray for peace for Katie Beth. We pray for their 2 boys. God, we pray that you would be with them and they would just feel so tangibly your presence. And there's a group of people all over our city who are praying for her. And God, we pray for Macy. God, we just pray healing over her body. God, we just pray that the infection would subside. We pray that the things that have been difficult about the procedure stuff, all of that would work itself out. We pray for the doctors. We pray for that you would guide them. But at the same time, we just pray for something that is almost beyond natural in healing her body. God, we ask that you would meet her there. And we love you and we trust you for that. So in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thanks for doing that. You guys can go ahead and have a seat. Some of you are like, I hadn't prayed out loud in a long time. I'm with you. I get it. Thanks for doing that. And the family is, her name is Macy. I probably should have said that more. Caleb and Katie Beth. And if you're following on Facebook, you've probably seen some of that too. They're updating, and they've been a part of our church for a long time. And they're here in the community. So thanks for taking time to do that. Hey, a couple things that I wanted to let you know about. By the way, my name is Patrick. I also probably should introduce myself. So if it's your first time, like, who's this guy? I'm the lead pastor here. We're so glad that you decided to join us today. And I don't think you could have picked a better week to be here. We're kicking off a series called The Backwards Way, and we're going to be talking about that for the next couple of weeks. And I'll tell you this too. Usually when you come, there's a lot of big old lights that are like moving on the stage, and there's a whole thing happening here. That's a little bit different. So behind this curtain is right now a ginormous mess. But after today, it's going to be a ginormous piece of awesome. So I'm super excited about that. We've got a bunch of people who are coming today to help transition our stage and transition our facility for Christmas, and we're so excited about that. If you've never been to Christmas around here, it's a big deal. It's a little bit like Elf on steroids. So it's like we're just excited about Christmas a lot, and it's going to be fun. So we're getting ready for the stage, getting ready to do that. So we're going to tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But before we jump into that, I want to invite my good friend Erica Walsh up. You guys give it up for Erica if you would. Let me say hey to her. I asked Erica. I think I asked you yesterday. Was it yesterday or day before yesterday? Yeah.
I had very little time to prepare.
I'm all about setting people up to win. No, it's good. So Erica is a good friend of our family, and then she's also one of our mentors for a program that we're partnered with called Kids Hope here in town. And if you're unfamiliar with Kids Hope, it's probably one of my favorite things that we do. We have a group of mentors, which Erica is one, that actually go into our schools and they partner up with an elementary school student, and they come alongside them oftentimes for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they walk them through that journey, and they just show up in their life, specifically at Traverse Heights Elementary. And so I wanted you to kind of tell a little bit about your journey with this, and kind of like first off, like how you got connected to it, and how long you've been a mentor.
This is my second school year with the program, and really I got connected to it through you and everyone who came up here and would talk about it every once in a while.
Yeah. So I'm super persuasive. That's what it was. That's what that was.
Yes, that's right.
They didn't laugh at the 9 o'clock either. Nobody thinks that. That
we
joke.
tried it twice.
It's swinging and missing. It's great. That's great. So I love this because I talk to people all the time, and she's actually on the board of CFS here in town. She's got right. We can give it up for CFS. We'll talk about that in a second. This is amazing. And then. Yeah, 3 kids? I have 3 kids. I always think 4. I don't know why, but
no,
3. No,
not 4.
Definitely 3.
No,
Definitely 3. Yeah, it's great. And her husband's a doctor, like here in town. It's amazing. So you got a lot going on. I'd be curious, like, tell us a little bit about your hesitations of getting involved. Like, how did you actually take that step? What was that like?
Well, it probably took me about a year to finally decide to jump in, because when you guys get up here on stage and you start asking us to do things, which is a lot.
Sure.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah.
You automatically think like, well, I am too busy. I might have a meeting. I have this. My kids need this. My. And I just found that every time I was making an excuse in my head, the first word was I or my. And I thought, I can't do this. I have to do things that are outside of me and my universe. I had to be intentional about it. So then I just said, you know what? If God wants this to happen in my life, it's going to go okay. Yeah. He's going to make it happen for me and this child. And so I jumped in. Yeah,
that's incredible. And how has it impacted you? Like, so you've been in it now for, you said 2 years, right?
Yeah.
How has it like specifically impacted you?
Well, I'm a very tasky person, so I have a lot to do in a day. I'm a busy person. And so like on a Monday, for example, I get through my task list and I feel good at the end of the day. I feel like, I accomplished this, I did that. I feel very accomplished. But on a Tuesday, when I go see my kid at Kids Hope, I actually feel a whole different feeling in my chest. It's a feeling of fulfillment that I know is directly from God. It's not that feeling of accomplishment. It's that feeling of just God's love and God's presence dwelling in me. So that's how it's impacted me.
That's cool. And so how would you say it's impacted the little girl that you're with? Yeah.
My kid. And I mean, I'm sure everybody's kid is great, but my kid is just superb. When I first approached her and I said, I'm your mentor, she actually fell on the ground and acted like she fainted. And she was like, me? You picked me? Yeah. She felt so special. And every week that continues. When she sees me, she's delighted that I'm there. She gives me a hug, and other kids around her are like grumbling, like, I want a mentor. Like every kid in this school, by the way, guys, is fantastic. The staff, the principal, they're awesome, but there's a lot of need in the school. There are a lot of challenges that they're dealing with outside of the academic realm, and we can help with that. And so anyway, all these kids want mentors, so I get to give this kid one thing that she gets that not a lot of other kids get, and that's a rarity for her. So for her, I think it just builds her up every week that we're together. She feels special, and I get to do that for her, which is exactly what God wants me to do on this planet.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Outside of my busyness.
Yeah. So I was talking to a friend, too, DC, some of you guys know DC. He actually just signed up to be a mentor as well. And he had the same experience where he was like, he's driving over there, and fellas, we can all say this, like, we're all about it, so we actually have to drive over, and then on the drive, we're like, I have all this stuff to do. And he said he got there kind of in that mood, and the kid started jumping up and down and was super excited that he was there. I was like, no one ever does that when I walk in a room, but that's okay.
Exactly.
That's
she really gets super excited, and it's so authentic and real because she's a kid.
Yeah.
She's not here to try to prove anything to me. She really likes me.
Right,
and it's great. My kids are like, oh, hi, Mom.
Yeah. That's really good. So tell us a little bit, so you work with CFS. Tell us a little bit about like how we're partnering with Paper Angels Wish List. Did I say that right? Yeah.
So Brianna Motley's the director of the Kids Hope program here.
Which, real quick, is right back there in the red. She's not going to like her. Can we just give it up for Brianna Motley real quick?
Give it for Brianna. She is phenomenal.
She's really angry with me right now in her head.
This program is successful because of a lot of people, but she's the one. She does it all. Anyway, what was?
Yeah. So Paper Angels.
Paper Angels. Yeah. So what we do every year at Child and Family Services is we have a kids wish list program. So children all over the region are assessed for economic need, and those children then are able to submit a Christmas wish list. And what we then do is we open up a hotline, and donors call in, and they're able to take the wish list, buy the gifts, and bring them back to us. And then all these kids, 812 kids had a Christmas last year that otherwise wouldn't have.
Wow.
So Brianna and I it's awesome.
Yeah,
It's God's
absolutely.
work, you guys. It really
incredible.
is. So then Brianna and I got our heads together and said, these kids, Hope Kids, they're the perfect kids for this program. So they're actually a part of it now. So we've joined forces, and almost every kid from our Kids Hope program, their list is being fulfilled now. A donor has taken their list, so
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and
so great.
you're a big part of that, whether you know that or not. Oftentimes when you come to a church, or you think like, if I give, it's primarily just going to make services happen. But a lot of what you do here actually impacts our local community, and as you've been seeing over the last several weeks, it impacts the globe as well. We're able to reach a little over 500,000 people, and then specifically here in Traverse City, do things just like we're talking about today. So if you would, I'd love for you to pull out this booklet. I think you got a booklet when you came in. Everybody get one of these booklets. If you didn't get one, raise your hand. Some of our ushers will get you one of these. I want you to turn to, and then like right in the middle section, I wanted to highlight one thing and then really just say thank you to you. I think it's right in the middle where you'll see kind of what we're doing with families. So you heard a little bit about how we go into the community, but the other component of this is what we do here at our church for your family and the kids and students that you have. We really want to focus in on the next generation and how do we partner with you as a parent to do that. And so I want to say when you give here, you're really giving to what we do locally outreach. You're giving all over the world, but you're also giving to create an amazing program for your son or daughter, whatever age they are, from really preschool all the way on up to high school. And we just want to say thank you so much for partnering with us. Thank you so much for giving. Thank you for sacrificially giving to see all of those things happening. I want to tell you this, and if you could look at me just for a second, you're making, especially those of you who are giving and volunteering, you're making a significant impact, more than you'll ever know. And we just wanted to say thank you so much for doing that. So can you help me thank Erica and all of our Kids Hope
thank you.
mentors, and Brianna, thank you so much. So great. Hey, I want to go invite our ushers to move forward. We are going to receive our offering today. I want to say, again, thank you so much to those of you who partner with us. And as you're considering a year-end gift, we just want to say thank you so much. It's so interesting as you get towards December. So much of those funds come at the very end of the year. And so for those of you who are doing that, we just want to say thank you for partnering with us. And there's several ways that you can give. Obviously, this little basket thing comes by. But you can also give online. Honestly, giving online is probably the easiest way to give at our church. You go to kensingtonchurch.org/gift or on the Kensington app. That's how our family does it. We set up our recurring giving in that way. You can also send a check with Christmas in the memo, or you can just text Kensington Christmas to 77977. Those are great opportunities for you to be a part of those things. And again, since Christmas is right around the corner, which is crazy, I think I said this last week, and I still think it feels like July, just colder right now. I feel like just the fall, blazed by. But we're super excited about Christmas. It's a big deal around here. And so, as I said, we're kind of getting ready for all of that. But we also have several services that you can choose from. We just love if you would just let us know which service you and your family and your friends are coming to. So we have services on December 23rd at 9 and 11 a.m. and then Monday, December 24th at 4 p.m. And then on Christmas Eve night, right, at 11 p.m., we have what we call like a render service, which is a little bit scaled back. We'll do communion together, several things like that. We'd love for you to be a part of those services. And then for those of you who attend here, we would love to ask you to come one and then serve one if you're willing to do that. That's a really big deal around here because of the sheer number of people that just kind of migrate through our building through the month of December. We'd love to ask you to be a part of that. And so to let us know in RSVP, you can go to kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas. It's a quick little process just to let us know how many people are coming from your family and friends and all that sort of thing. And again, today we're kicking off a brand new series called The Backwards Way. I'm super excited about this series. I can't wait to talk about what we're talking about specifically today. I think it's something that every single person in the room kind of has felt before and thought about. And throughout this series, we're going to be talking a lot about you and how we could think differently about our lives. So to get us thinking that mindset, let's watch this video and then we'll jump into the talk. All right, so real quick, let's be honest just for a second. How many of you as a kid used to play with your food when you were a little kid? Anybody, like, you played with your food? Remember, you're in church, you can't lie. Anybody, you played with your food, right? All right, and then those of you who didn't raise your hand but were lying. Anybody else? Yeah, nobody's going to do that. All right, so I used to play with my food all the time, and I played one specific game with my food, and it didn't matter if it was chicken nuggets, it didn't matter, like, whatever, pizza, whatever it was. I used to stack my food to see how high I could do that. Anybody remember Lunchables? Anybody do Lunchables? And I would get multiple Lunchables and try to make the biggest Big Mac out of this turkey and fake cheese situation, right? I just stack it as high as I could. And then inevitably, there was always that kid who thought it'd be funny to knock it down. Anybody remember that kid? Anybody were that kid? You're in church. Yes, you admitted it. Awesome, right? And there's just something funny about, like, how high could I stack it? And so I'll never forget, I was at, I think I'm probably in third or fourth grade, something like that. And by that, I mean senior in high school. And I'm stacking all these, like, Lunchable things as high as I could, right? And then all of a sudden, somebody else at our lunch table thought, oh, I could stack it higher, right? And so all of a sudden, they kind of gathered whatever their Lunchables were and other people's Lunchables because, they were stronger and bigger and they took their food. And so they started stacking, and then somebody else thought, well, I can do it higher than that. And all of a sudden at our table, there were all of these stacked Lunchable kind of things that were just like, it became competitive, right? You ever seen this before? Like, ladies, let me talk to you for a second. How many times have you looked at your husband and he was more competitive just because somebody else was being competitive, right? Like, so you just bought a new TV, but so his best friend bought one and it was like 4K and it was slightly curved and like UHD, and you don't know what UHD means. And he doesn't know what UHD means, but he needs it just because his friend did. Like, there's this competitive kind of thing that just keeps growing. And that's just kind of in us, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, some of the greatest things that we've ever accomplished, I think, have been because there's kind of like this competitive sort of nature amongst it. Now, years and years ago, I think there's a beautiful example of this when it comes to skyscrapers, right? How many of you have ever been to Chicago or New York? Specifically those two. Anybody ever been? How many people have not been to Chicago or New York? Anybody? Hopefully you've had Chick-fil-A. Outside of that, even if you haven't had the pizza. All right, Chicago or New York are so interesting, and I love this picture because when you stand next to one of these skyscrapers, you just feel really, really small, don't you? Right? And I'll never forget, my wife and I went to Chicago not too long ago, and we're kind of walking around, and we did the architectural water tour. Do you remember this? And I was so excited, and our tour guide was way more enthusiastic than I was comfortable with. But he was very excited about telling us all these things, and we're floating around on the river, and he's telling us all this stuff. And he didn't say it like this, but what he was really saying was, this person built this skyscraper, and then this person built a bigger skyscraper, and then this person built a big, and it just over and over and over and over and over again. And what was so interesting about it is we got so good at building these buildings that all of a sudden now when you like walk around, it's like when you look up and it's cloudy, it almost feels like it just goes on and never stops. It's almost like we touch the heavens when it comes to these skyscrapers. And that drive, again, isn't necessarily a bad thing. The problem with that drive is that it can lead to bad places if it's unchecked. Now, I grew up in church. A lot of you did too. For those of you who didn't, we were kind of told this story or this narrative as a kid, and then all of a sudden something happened. I heard about it when I was a kid, and then by the time I hit middle school, we didn't talk about it anymore. And then I hit high school, and it was like distantly, kind of referenced. And then in college, and then in adulthood, you just don't hear people talk about this particular narrative out of the Bible. And part of it is, in some ways, it feels like a fairy tale. Like, it feels hard to teach on. And in other parts of it, when you look at this part of the Bible, it just feels like this. Like, I don't even know how we engage with it. Because in 2018, looking back thousands of years ago, how do we even find ourselves in a narrative that, number one, doesn't feel real, and number two, doesn't even feel like, it's a part of us? And the narrative that we're going to look at today is called the Tower of Babel. Now, it's not necessarily called that in Scripture, but this is what we've kind of like coined as the title of this narrative. And it's so interesting because it really kind of centers around like this ancient first skyscraper. Now, from the beginning of time, and since this area of the Bible that's been talked about, it really centers on this whole like competitive thing, but not just competitive thing, this exclusivity thing. That we can build something and build something and build something, but not only can we build something, but we almost become godlike in the ways that we approach parts of our lives. That we just feel like we can do anything. And not only can we do anything, but that innovation continually takes us higher and higher and higher and higher. And that godlike sort of like, I'm going to become, in a place where I don't need anything or need anybody, right? That I'm kind of the center of my own universe. That's not a new thing. It just kind of has always been. In fact, when you look at the narratives of Genesis, like 1 through 3, 4, 5, when you look at like how sin entered into the world and this narrative, how all this kind of happened, oftentimes we talk about sin entering the world because of disobedience to God. And I think you can obviously make that case, but there's really a different temptation that floats just beneath the surface of all of that. So here's what the serpent or the tempter said when sin entered the world. It says, "You will not certainly die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat from it," don't miss this, "your eyes will be opened," and then can we say this together? "And you will like God." You will be like God, knowing good and even evil. And that was like the temptation, that you will be like God. And there's something inside of us that, you don't walk around saying this at the office, "I am like God." That wouldn't go well for you. You certainly don't say this at home to your spouse, because that certainly wouldn't go well for you. Like you just have this thing though, and it's very small in some of us, and in some of us it's bigger. But there's this thing where I don't need anybody, right? Or I want to get to the place where I'm not going to need other people, and I'm going to get to the place where I can do anything, and I'm going to build the walls, or I'm going to build my kingdom, or I'm going to build my empire. And that is really the crux of this narrative of the Tower of Babel. Now, Babel, the word, is interesting too to me. And if you're not somebody who is interested in words like this, just give me 30 seconds and we'll be done with it. But the word is actually kind of like these interesting origins, specifically around the Akkadian meaning or definition of this. What it means in that culture is like the gate of God. That we're going to create a wall, we're going to create a gate, we're going to create something that is exclusive, that there are outsiders, and then there are insiders. There are people that are a part of this and protected and like this fortified kind of thing. And there are people who are outside of those walls. And then for the ancient Jewish people who would talk about this, the way that they would use the word is really to talk about how something would happen that would jumble or confuse a group of people, which is really kind of what happens in this narrative. And so what I want to do for the next few minutes is I want to talk about this narrative, but I don't want to just talk about what happened thousands of years ago. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you, and I want to talk about how this applies to you, and I want to talk about how this applies to me, because this ancient story, and really one of the central figures to this story, is really where we find ourselves in it. So here's what it says. This is Genesis chapter 11. We're going to walk through a little bit of this passage together. It says, "Now the whole world had one language, or this one unifying way of communicating, and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there." It goes on. It says, "They said to each other, 'Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly.' And they used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar." Now, when you read about bricks in the Bible, nobody pays attention. I get it. Like nobody goes, "Oh, that's interesting. A brick." Like you don't think about that. I don't think about that either. But this was so fascinating and central to the story. Because when they started making bricks in this way, all of a sudden the bricks became uniform. Now think about trying to stack Lunchables with the perfectly round crackers versus chicken nuggets from McDonald's. It's a different whole situation altogether, right? When you can stack something that's uniform and together and it just kind of builds on each other, this was something new. The way that they were bringing the bricks together, that was something new. They had made something better where they could build something faster and stronger and bigger. They had created innovation, right? They had created invention. They were making it better, which is what we would talk about in 2018 as technology. The central part of this story at the beginning is that they had a technological advancement. They figured out how to make better bricks and build something faster. That they could build this fortified city as high as they could possibly go to reach the heavens. To keep people out and keep people in. And they were using technology in the way that they thought about it to make something bigger, something better. The question around this is, what was their intention? Why would you want to build a fortified city in this way? Why would you want to build something that continued to go higher and higher and higher and reach towards the heaven? The writer says it in the next verse. It says this. It says, "Then they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth.'" I love this. "So that we may make a name for ourselves, so that collectively we may make a name for ourselves, that we might be known as the people who built the tower to the heavens and became godlike. That we might be protected, that we might be different, that we might be exclusive in some of those areas." Now think about this for you. If there's something inside of you and something inside of me that wants self-protection all the time, right? We have locks on our doors. We have Nest at our doorbell. Is that a doorbell thing? Yeah. We have, like, you can check from your iPhone everything going on. Like, I have cameras for our kids in their rooms, right? Not just one, but then have, like, a backup just in case, you know what I mean? And I'm, like, 30 steps away, that's me. You have things that you can put, like, you want to feel safe. You want to feel protected. Right, a lot of you knew what it was like when you were a kid. Like, your mom or your dad would sit you down. If you were going to be in a certain part of town, they'd say, like, this is how you navigate that. If you're going to go do this, like, this is how you do that. You got to have all this. And you're just thinking, constant protection for me, my family, and for my values. The other pursuit that we all have, as they had, was this human power. The acknowledgement of this power to create and make things and do things. There was something inherently in us that was more powerful than we like to acknowledge. And the fun part was like self-promotion, that we might make a name for ourselves. And you don't like to think about it in terms of self-promotion, and I don't either, but there's this thing where we like for people to know that we're a big freaking deal, right? Like you post on Facebook, Instagram is built around the fact that you might look better than you actually look, right? Filters, and you have all this, like, I love, like, is liquefy a thing? Is that how that works? I can make my face, I never am good at it. I always look like a weird cartoon character. But you can, like, always do, like, you can present something different than you were. Promote something that is slightly real and slightly not. So there's this intention that they had of self-protection and human power and self-promotion. But the other part of the story that's so fascinating that, again, a lot of people don't talk about, but I think is probably the most interesting part of the whole narrative, is the person who is actually leading the charge to build this tower or this fortified city. And it's a name that you've probably used almost to call out your little brother at times, or to call people names that you probably shouldn't, and the name is this. Can we say this together? You didn't know that was in the Bible, did you? Yeah. The leader of this whole thing is connected to Green Day, right? I mean, that's like, it's this whole kind of deal, right? Nimrod, which is this fascinating thought. Because a chapter earlier, it talks about him, and it talks about where his focal point is. It says this, it says, Cush was the father of Nimrod, who became a mighty warrior on the earth, and he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. And then we get to the crux. The first centers of his kingdom. The first centers of Nimrod's kingdom were Babylon. Now, this is where it's all kind of taking place. He started building not just a kingdom, but an empire of all of these other areas and all of these other cities, and he would build it to do something to keep them safe, preserved, and exclusive. Nimrod is even more interesting to me because I love what the name actually means, right? This is the part that, again, I think is so fascinating. And whether the writer was just like kind of laughing as he wrote this down, I feel like I would be laughing if I wrote this down. Nimrod's name is the Hebrew root word for rebel. Which means in this whole narrative now, we have the leader of the whole thing, whose name means rebel, and he's leveraging technology to build something where the intentions were to self-preserve and not focus on outsiders, and build something as if they were godlike. And that's what we call pride and arrogance, or your weird uncle, right? That's something that we like to talk about, that you can almost look and see how the story is going to end. So think about this verse again through Nimrod's perspective, the technology, and what they were thinking. They said, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens. Why? Because we can. So that we may make a name for ourselves, otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. Now for a moment, I'll for you to like zoom out. Because if you're in the city and you're in the skyscraper and you're building this thing, it feels good, right? You ever been a part of a team that was winning? You feel, sorry, that wasn't a Michigan or Michigan State joke, I promise, right? I'm a Clemson fan, we're doing all right. Okay. But when you're part of a team that's like, you're just like, it feels good. Like we're making progress. We're moving forward. And you focus on the winning and the team but you forget what's happening around you. Picture this whole building process. Now all of a sudden there's this new brick and they're able to build it faster and bigger and better. But the outsiders of this now sit there and go, wait, they're making us outsiders faster and bigger and more fortified than they ever have before. You imagine standing there and thinking, that's happening, but I'm here, so what's going to happen next for me? Dave Gibbons wrote a book called Small Cloud Rising, which is, it's such an amazing book. It's a quick read. A lot of these thoughts actually come from this book. It's so good. And he has this quote in it that is so it's so humbling when you read it. And it's humbling especially in 2018 because it's so easy for us to bypass this and not pay attention to it and not even to think about it. But he says, the building of Babel exhibits the motivation of the human heart, I miss this, to promote oneself against the welfare of others. And in our desire to make a name for ourselves, we are more than content to rise on the backs of others. But when you're rising, you're not thinking about that. It's thinking bigger, better, more fortified, exclusivity. It's bigger. Which is interesting. When you think about the God of the universe, right? Making all of humanity in its uniqueness and differences. When you think of the God of the universe making all of humanity look in the way that it does and feel in the way that it does and see things from a different perspective in the way that it does. There isn't really, from God's perspective, outsiders, insiders in that sense. It's humanity. It's people. It's brokenness. But yet what this narrative is poking at is this thing that's inside of our hearts that is both powerful and good, and we do extraordinary things, with this deep warning of, but that brings with it something that you have to be cautious of. N.T. Wright has this amazing quote that when I read, it floored me. He says, while humanity had a mission to reflect God, it had been distracted by its own reflection and was both fascinated and fearful of what it saw. Dave Gibbons in the book talks about how when you build walls, it's almost like the walls that you build around you become mirrors of who you are. Imagine in this building if everything were a mirror and we walked around and we just saw ourselves. That we almost keep people out, but we just continue to see more and more versions of us. And that is both a fascinating thing and it should frighten us. Fascinated and fearful of our own power to create, to build, to make progress. It's fascinating. And it's humbling. And it's humbling and it's fearful because you've seen somebody who had power like that, abused power like that, and you've seen what happens on the other side of it. You've seen what happens when the power to create, the power to build, the power to make things happen for yourself leads a person to think that they can do it all in themselves, and they miss how fragile parts of life can be. And then on the other side of it, we've all watched people fall like these great distances, and it all come crumbling down around them. Because when something is built on that kind of pride, when something like the original sin is built on this, God-like pursuit, it leads us to pride, which can lead us to rebellion, which in some form or fashion tends to lead us to some form of oppression. And nobody likes to acknowledge that. But with great power comes, just kidding, but seriously, right? That this whole pride thing can lead us down a path we're never intended to go. The narrative continues on and it says this. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. And the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. And then watch what happens next. It says, come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they will not understand each other. So God comes down, confuses their language, and all the things that seemed like to brought them together, all of a sudden they couldn't communicate anymore. And all of a sudden they couldn't build the wall in the ways that they thought they were going to build it. And all of a sudden it was like construction on the whole thing stopped, and he genuinely became a Nimrod, right? Like the whole thing began to happen and pause and cease. The empire in some ways felt like it was crumbling around them. And then their greatest fear came to pass. It says, so the Lord scattered them from over all of the earth, and they stopped building the city. Think about this for a second. The God of the universe stepped into all of that and scattered this group of people all over. and disrupted their plans. What if God's plan were a people who scattered and found unity within their uniqueness? Like, what would happen in our world? What would happen in the United States? What would happen globally if we were able to say, hey, we find a unity in the uniqueness of all humanity? Like, so many things that we build walls around, so many things that we build, all of these things. If those crumbled, and the person sitting in front of you, and the person on the other side of the screen from you, and the person that you talked about, and the person that you worked with were a human, a person, and not just somebody you either invited in or invited out. But they were a person that you embraced. God's plan, as we see from the Tower of Babel, is a group of people who have been humbled in some ways and understand that these building of the walls that eventually become mirrors will crumble around us. In Babel, the people's greatest fear is the very thing that God desires, and that is to be scattered over the face of the earth, which means that this whole self-protection mentality begins to go away in light of trust and obedience to God. That this continual pursuit of more and more human power begins to fall with submission to authority of God. That this self-promotion, look at me, because it was me who built it, it was me who did it, it falls at genuine worship. And then pride is my favorite, because what happens with pride is it begins to crumble at selfless love. That's the plan that God had for us. The plan that we find in the Tower of Babel is a group of people who were building a thing that eventually ceased at the power of people being forced to embrace uniqueness and move outside of it. Now, for those of you who are church people, right, I want to say a couple things to you. And for those of you who are not and you're here, somebody promised you lunch, I'm super glad you're here. And you're probably going to agree with most of the things that I say over the next moment. But here's what I would say to those of us who are followers of Jesus. The mentality that we're going to build walls that separate us from the rest of the world was never really God's intent or design for his people at all. In fact, when you look through the New Testament, there's another almost side of this. There were a group of people who were praying that God's Spirit would enter into the world in a powerful way and then move out from them. And they started in a room with closed walls, but then they left that and scattered. And they began to speak in ways that they could communicate with all different types of people. And this miraculous thing happens where God almost, again, feels like he just scatters people to do something bigger than they originally imagined. What could the church look like if it wasn't confined to a building? And as much as I love this room, and I promise you, Sundays are my favorite day of the week. I roll in at 5:30. That's not true. I roll in at 6, roughly, with a lot of coffee. I show up. I love what we do. We're about to tear apart the whole stage. Actually, we already tore it apart. We're going to put the thing back together. I'm like, give me a light. Let me do it. They're like, for the love of God, take your hands off of the equipment, right? That's what they do for me, because I break stuff all the time. I love what we do. I love gathering. I love this room. It's very oddly shaped, but I do like this room, right? But my thing is this. If all we do is gather like this, and if all we do is church is Sunday and we come and we sing a couple songs, woo, and man, the band was good, or this week the message was okay, but last week whatever, and we feel those things, it's what are we really doing? I said recently to some of our team, I said, if all we really do is show up on a weekend to do this, it's great. And we create this place, especially for people who are in the room who are you're curious about faith. I think all that's great. But if that's all that we did, I feel like we could take all that money and just give it to somebody else to do something more with. The power of what happens when we come together as a local church is the story that Erica was telling you about that little girl. The power that a lot of times happens when we go globally and we bring young girls out of sex trafficking. The power of this is what can happen when we scatter together and we reach out beyond our comfort zones and we make a significant impact in the community that we're in and then the global community that we're part of. Can you imagine millions of people all over the world are meeting on a Sunday right now? They're meeting on a Sunday. What would happen if every single person who said they were a follower of Jesus at the same time gathered and then scattered afterwards? They scattered out into places where they felt uncomfortable. They scattered out into places where they weren't sure what to say. Think about it. When's the last time you had a conversation with somebody that felt messy, that you didn't have an answer for them? When was the last time you invited somebody to your dinner table and you were like, I hope my kids are okay? Like, when was the last time you did that? When was the last time I did that? I was prepared for this. Like, it's been about a month since I had one of those conversations. I was like, that's fun, When was the last time you viewed every single person, even if they're different than you and believe different than you and thought different than you, as a son or daughter of the God of the universe? When was the last time that we moved into our world with that kind of intentionality, that kind of power? God's design for the church was never that we would just come, pretty lights, the guy with Britney Spears mic, fun production, and sing, even though all that's great. It's that we would be this church within humanity, that we wouldn't shield ourselves from it. Or do you find yourself trying to protect yourself from? What is that? And how do we move beyond it? So, the question that I really wanted us to think about today, and we'll unpack it for a second, is this. What might God do through you, right? That if you were really honest, if I was really honest, and we fully embraced the whole thing, what is it that God might do through us? What is it that God might do through us if we set aside the walls that we've built with other people and we moved out in our communities with power and we said, we're going to focus on you? What might it look like for us to have that kind of influence in our world? So I want to talk for a second, real quick, for those of you who think about self-protection for a second, and your whole deal is I'm going to fight for Christianity. Here's what I would say, and it sounds so bad to say out loud. I think God's okay with, I think he's good. I think he's got it, right? Which means we're coming up on Christmas season. It's how do we fight to keep Christ in Christmas? I'm he's already there. He showed up. We're good. I promise we're good. For those of you who are you know what? I'm just I'm going to build walls and I don't want people in. And everybody does this. I do this too, right? I do this all the time. Now look at me just for a second. When we build those kind of walls, who are the people that you choose to intentionally not spend time with? And why? What would it look like if you tore those down? What would it look like if we moved in our world in that way? And what would it look like if we were all fully and finally reminded who we are and whose we are and what God put us here to do? So what we're going to do to wrap up, and then we'll end this, is I want us, as we kind of move through this week, I want us to start having some uncomfortable conversations with people and to lean into that in a powerful way. And so there's a song that a lot of you have heard recently. It's by Lauren Daigle. And anybody know Lauren Daigle? You've probably heard about her on the radio. It's funny. She wrote this song. It's this Christian song that kind of blew up on the radio, Christian radio. And then it started blowing up on secular radio. And then she's on Jimmy Fallon. And she's on Ellen. She's on all these, shows and stuff. And one of the songs that she wrote is a song called You Say. And it has these powerful lyrics in it that I think is so important. She says this. She says, remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know, right? Remind me once again who I am, because I need to know. And she says, taking all that I have, and now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God, and you'll have every victory. Now I love this. She says, remind me again who I am. I want us for the next few minutes to be reminded of who we are and what God has called us and placed us here to do. So I'm going to invite the band out. Carrie is going to lead us in this, and then Ruby is going to play piano, which is so much fun. She's a high school student. She's so much talented. So talented. And as we do this song, what I'd love for you to do is, I'd like for you the next couple of minutes, I want you to think about some of the things that we've been talking about, specifically those 4 areas. And where are the places that you've built walls, and how do you need to be reminded of what it is that God says that you are, who God says you are, and what you need to do. So let me pray for us, and then we'll do the song together. Father, thank you for this truth. God, thank you for this ancient text and this ancient narrative that really points to who we are in 2018 in so many different ways. God, you've called us to do extraordinary things. And God, for those of us who have been passive about that and found ourselves very comfortable with the walls that we've built around ourselves, Father, I ask that you would tear those walls down. And God, I ask that you would, in some ways, in the ways that you did it thousands of years ago, you would both remind us who we are, remind us of your plan, and then you would call us out into doing something extraordinary. And God, I pray that you would give us tangible ways that you're doing that in our midst. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, 'cause I need to know. Ooh, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing, and you say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I can fall short, when I don't belong. You say I am yours. Oh, I believe. Yes, I believe what you say of me. I believe. The only thing that matters now is everything you think of me. In you I find my worth, in you I find my identity. Ooh, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I am falling short, when I don't belong. You say I am yours, and I believe. Oh, I believe what you say of me. I believe. Taking all I have and now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God, and you have every victory. Ooh, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I keep falling short, when I don't belong. You say I am yours. Well, I believe. Yes, I believe what you say of me. Ooh. Oh, I believe. Yes, I believe what you say of me. I believe.
So here's my challenge for us this week, right? When you hear this narrative, when you hear the narrative of the Tower of Babel, what I hope for you and what I hope for me in 2018 is that we kind of identify what it is in our own hearts and our own lives, the place that we built those walls. And so here's my challenge to you. This week, I hope that everybody in our church does one of those things. That we kind of move out and have one uncomfortable conversation that would cause us to kind of step out of the bounds that we had before. That we would have maybe somebody over that we haven't even thought about having over before. That we would build a relationship with somebody or a bridge with somebody who's hurt us. That we would kind of step into some of those spaces and begin to tear down some of those walls. And so what we were hoping and what we were been praying for is that as we kick off this series, and we're going to talk, a bunch more through the rest of the series, but our hope is to kick it off that every single person, like what would happen if every single person this week at our churches, and if those of you who are watching online, if you took a big step out and you kind of took one of those steps out in faith and you did something that was super uncomfortable on behalf of somebody else. So that's our challenge for you this week, and we'd love for you to think about. Next week, we're going to talk about you and your baggage and our pain and how we kind of move forward through that and leverage that on behalf of other people. So we'd love to invite you back next week. And if it's your first time, right out in the lobby, we have something called The Hub. We'd love to connect with you and talk with you more out there. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you right back here next Sunday. See you soon. And thank you so much for watching online. We're so glad you decided to join us today. And if it's your first time, I want to say a big shout out to you. And we also want to invite you, if you're not currently doing so, to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'd love for you to be a part of one of those communities. It's a great way to find out more information about our church and then also see some behind-the-scenes stuff of all that goes on here as well. I also love to invite you live. Next week, we're continuing our series. We'd love for you to be a part of this live. It's a fun experience online, but it's even better, we think, if you're in the room. So we'd love for you to be a part of that if you live in Northern Michigan. And also want you to mark your calendars for, obviously, our Christmas services that are coming up on the 23rd and 24th. All the service times are online. We'd love for you to RSVP for one of those so we can be ready for you, your family, and your friends. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next Sunday.